China is a currency manipulator.
So China have been keeping dollar yuan fixed very stable, but now they're starting to loosen it.
China is by far the biggest threat to the United States dollar because Beijing has the capacity, influence, and motivation to go against the dollar and succeed, and they are doing it right now. The most recent effort from the Chinese government may introduce the largest economic reforms the country has seen in recent times as Xi Jinping rolls out stimulus measures for the Chinese economy. These measures are not just to revive the Chinese economy, they will also help fix problems caused by competition against the United States, which means the dollar will be on the line. There is a good reason for the United States to be concerned, and they are because things just got even more serious. In Congress, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is facing tough questions of how she intends to fix the Chinese de-dollarization efforts, but her answers are not landing well with members of the Congress.
Not sure if you're aware of that, not asking you that question. Combined with the de-dollarization efforts by adversaries like China, Iran, Russia to evade sanctions, the potential weakening of the dollar as a global reserve currency is concerning.
In this video, we will review all these issues and explain what is going on so you understand how this changes the state of things. First, let's talk about why China should be taken very seriously and why this nation could realistically impact the US dollar more than any other nation. At several points in recent times, China has held the position of being the largest trade partner to the United States. Mexico only overtook China in 2024 after 20 years of falling behind as the US's largest trade partner. Despite ongoing trade tensions, China continues to play a significant role in the United States trade volume. In 2022 alone, trade between the two countries reached an astonishing $690 billion. Now, out of that, about $537 billion were U.S. imports from China. This makes China one of the biggest contributors to the U.S. trade deficit. But China's influence doesn't stop there. A significant portion of goods entering the U.S. from countries like Mexico and the European Union are actually of Chinese origin. Many Chinese companies strategically use Mexico as a manufacturing hub to bypass U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods, amplifying their footprint in U.S. markets. Given this deep interconnection in global trade, the U.S. is in a precarious position if the dollar loses its dominant role. China's influence extends beyond its direct trade with the U.S. Since 2021, it has also surpassed the U.S. as Europe's largest trading partner. If China pushes for more transactions in yuan instead of dollars, the global trade landscape could shift dramatically, putting even more pressure on the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency. During a recent House Financial Services Committee hearing, Representative Vicente Gonzalez engaged in a heated debate with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen regarding the declining dominance of the U.S. dollar as the world's primary reserve currency. Gonzalez raised concerns about the increasing use of alternative assets and currencies by other nations, particularly China, questioning the potential long-term impacts on the U.S. economy.
But isn't it the fact that the use of the dollar has diminished and gone down against competing currencies over the years?
There's been some increase in holdings of other reserve assets, but that's something to be expected in a growing world.
Gonzalez pointed out that several countries, including China and Russia, have been actively seeking to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar. This shift, he argued, could undermine the dollar's global standing in economic influence. In response, Secretary Yellen acknowledged the trend, admitting that there has been a noticeable increase in the use of other assets besides the U.S. dollar. She attributed this shift to a combination of geopolitical tensions, economic sanctions, and the desire of some countries to diversify their reserves. Yellen emphasized that while the dollar remains the dominant reserve currency, the U.S. must remain vigilant and proactive in maintaining its economic leadership. Over the past few decades, the U.S. dollar has been the world's go-to currency, but that dominance is slipping. Right now, the dollar accounts for about 59% of global foreign exchange reserves. That's the lowest it's been in 25 years. Meanwhile, currencies like the euro, yuan, and others are starting to grab more of that global reserve pie. This might seem like a small shift, but it could have massive implications for global trade and the U.S. economy. So while it is true that the dollar still holds the largest share in reserve currencies, its downward trend is something that seems likely to continue and even get worse. The U.S. authorities, particularly Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, emphasized that no other currency currently can fully replace the dollar's role in the global financial system. But can China change this narrative? It seems so. China is deepening its relationships with non-Western economies. Over the past decade, the Chinese yuan, also known as the renminbi or RMB, has gained significant traction in Africa. This shift is part of a broader trend of de-dollarization, where countries seek to reduce their reliance on the US dollar for international trade and finance. This is possible because China has become Africa's largest trading partner, with trade volumes reaching hundreds of billions of dollars annually. This deep economic relationship naturally encourages the use of the yuan in transactions. China has invested heavily in African infrastructure, mining, and other sectors. These investments often come with financial agreements that promote the use of the yuan. Also, Beijing has formalized its financial relationships with several African nations through currency swap agreements. These agreements allow countries to exchange their currencies directly, bypassing the need for a third-party currency like the US dollar. One of the earliest adopters, South Africa, signed a currency swap agreement with China to facilitate trade and investment. Nigeria is also having a similar deal. As Africa's largest economy, Nigeria has integrated the yuan into its foreign reserves and signed a currency swap agreement to support bilateral trade. Although it is not going so well, the most significant step China is taking might just be its newly launched economic stimulus program. Xi Jinping's 2024 stimulus plan is a bold and comprehensive effort to revive China's economy, which has been struggling with a sluggish property market, deflationary pressures, and global economic uncertainties. If this plan succeeds, it won't just stabilize China's economy, it could also further decouple it from the United States, setting China on a more independent economic path. At the heart of this plan are substantial interest rate cuts. China's central bank, the People's Bank of China, recently reduced key interest rates, including a cut to the reverse repurchase rate, a key tool used to control liquidity, from 1.7% to 1.5%. Now you might be wondering, what does that actually mean? In simple terms, it's like making borrowing cheaper for businesses and consumers. This helps to inject money into the economy, encouraging spending and investment, which could provide the jolt China's economy needs to get back on track. But that's not all. China also lowered the reserve requirement ratio, which is the amount of cash banks are required to hold in reserve. By cutting this ratio, China has effectively released 1 trillion yuan, about $140 billion, into the economy. That's a massive sum of money now available for investment, spending, and stimulating growth across various sectors. This could unleash a flood of new investments within China. However, this isn't just about domestic recovery. The broader implications of these moves could ripple across the globe. By releasing more yuan into circulation, China is signaling a shift away from holding large reserves of US dollars. Essentially, this could accelerate China's ongoing effort to reduce its reliance on the dollar and promote the yuan as a global currency. More yuan liquidity means that China's trading partners, especially in regions like Africa and Southeast Asia, may increasingly use the yuan for international transactions, furthering China's de-dollarization agenda. What China is aiming for here is similar to what the United States did with the US dollar. Just as Janet Yellen admits, one of the reasons why the US dollar is preferred as a reserve currency is because of the deep liquidity the US dollar has.
The dollar is used widely as a reserve asset because of the depth and liquidity of U.S. capital markets.
Now that China is planning to expand the RMB liquidity, it means many other countries would be able to utilize this reserve for international trade. Essentially, China is preparing the yuan to be as dependable as the US dollar, and this is a direct indication that there will soon be more significant steps towards de-dollarization. Another interesting indication is that China has been actively selling off its dollar assets, including US Treasury bonds. In the first quarter of 2024 alone, China sold a record $53 billion worth of US Treasuries and agency bonds. This trend is part of a broader strategy to diversify its reserves and reduce exposure to potential US sanctions and economic pressures. By selling off dollar assets and increasing its gold reserves, China is positioning itself to mitigate risks associated with holding large amounts of US dollars. This strategy also aligns with its goal of promoting the yuan as a global currency. But the stimulus program covers a lot more. It would also support the property sector. First, mortgage rate reductions are making it cheaper for borrowers, especially those seeking second homes, to finance their purchases. This move is aimed at making homeownership more accessible and injecting new energy into the property market, which has seen some downturns recently. Additionally, the People's Bank of China is stepping in with substantial liquidity support, going as far as setting up a market stabilization fund. This fund aims to provide the necessary cash flow to keep the property market afloat and stable. In a broader push, fiscal stimulus plays a crucial role in the plan. To boost the economy, China is pumping money into critical sectors like food and energy. They're issuing 2 trillion yuan, about $280 billion, in special sovereign bonds to make this happen. These bonds are basically loans the government takes out from investors to fund important projects, like building energy infrastructure or ensuring stable food supplies. China's local governments are also stepping up, issuing more bonds to keep money flowing into their economies. This coordinated effort between the central and local governments signals a concerted push to strengthen key economic pillars. The capital market is not left out either. In an effort to stabilize and invigorate the stock market, new facilities worth 800 billion yuan are being introduced. This is a direct intervention to boost investor confidence and ensure that market volatility is kept in check, which is vital for long-term financial stability. These measures are expected to have a significant impact on China's economy. By lowering mortgage rates and flooding the market with liquidity, the plan aims to revive domestic consumption. Consumer spending is a key driver of economic growth, and renewed confidence among homeowners and investors could trigger a ripple effect, contributing to a broader economic recovery. Additionally, stabilizing the real estate market is crucial. With housing prices and sales being major factors negatively affecting the economy, these new initiatives are designed to halt the downward trend and restore growth in one of China's most vital sectors. Beyond domestic concerns, this policy is focused on strengthening China's economic resilience, particularly in the face of pressure from the U.S. A robust domestic economy will enable China to better withstand external shocks. And by bolstering key industries such as energy and technology, China aims to maintain its position in global markets. However, despite the scale of this stimulus, it comes with challenges. Analysts warn that while these efforts will provide short-term relief, addressing deeper structural problems within China's economy is essential for achieving long-term success.
I absolutely agree. I think this is a sort of short-term real stimulus for the asset prices, but as Derek said, these do not yet look like there's any sort of fundamental shift in fixing some of the underlying problems.
China's de-dollarization efforts are intertwined with its broader economic stimulus program, which, although aggressive, still faces obstacles. The plan is aimed at stabilizing key sectors such as real estate and capital markets. But entrenched issues like high corporate debt, inefficient local government spending, and structural economic imbalances pose significant risks. Stimulating consumer demand and increasing liquidity alone may not resolve deeper problems like the housing bubble, uneven regional economic development, or the financial strain on state-owned enterprises. China's leadership will need to carefully navigate these complexities to ensure that the stimulus leads to sustainable growth rather than short-term economic relief. Moreover, the global economic climate also carries certain risks that could impact the outcomes of these measures. China's success will depend on its ability to overcome these challenges and continue promoting the yuan as a viable alternative to the dollar. As the global economic landscape evolves, policymakers and market participants worldwide will closely monitor these efforts. To succeed, China must address the trust deficit in its financial system, increase yuan liquidity, and ensure its currency meets the stringent demands of global markets. While China's ambitions to strengthen its global influence and reduce dependence on the dollar are clear, the path ahead remains challenging. It will require not only bold financial moves, but also the ability to resolve long-standing internal economic issues. The long-term success of China's strategic vision will depend on how it navigates both internal and external challenges. While the long-term success of this video will depend on how you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.